Baroque period artist Giant Lorenzo Bernini, 1598 to 1680. Apollo and Daphne art. This sculpture is inspired by a tale from a book, I Ovid Metamorphoses, which recounts how a day Apollo, god in light and poetry takes an around wedding Cupid, calling him too young a boy to be fit to handle such dangerous weapons. One of spite, Cupid then pricked him with one of his armor-inducing arrows, causing the good to fall madly in love with the passing by river, Daphne. However, Daphne was devoted to the goddess Diana and had resolved never to marry and to remain a virgin for her entire life. When Apollo pursued her, driven by his lust, she ran away in panic, calling to her father, the river to God, to help her. He needed her prayer by transforming her into a laurel tree. Apollo declared that if she would never be his wife, she would be his tree, and it is for this reason that he imbued the tree with eternal youth and adopted the crown of laurel leaves, which subsequently became symbol of Olympic victories and Roman emperors. The Teresa of Saint Teresa art, one of the greatest sculptures from the era of Baroque art, the marble symbol known as the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Ano sa pagbasaan? So, located into Cornaro Chapel of the Church of Santa Maria della Vittoria, was carved by Bernini 1958 to 1680, one of the leading Baroque sculptors of the Roman school, a deliberately instanced work of Christian art. It regarded as one of the most important examples of the Counter-Reformation style of Baroque sculpture, designed to convey spiritual aspect of the Catholic faith. The work display an episode of religion ecstasy in the life of cloistered Spanish mystic and Carmelite nun, Teresa of Avila, 1515 to 1582, as described in her autobiography, The Life of Teresa of Jesus. Despite its status as a key work of religious art, critics of the work are divided as to whether Teresa is experiencing an intense state of divine joy or physical organs. Indeed, some devout contemporary deserve express outrage that Bernini would disbase such a holy experience by depicting in it a sexual way. However, Profession's Robert Harbison, in his book Reflections of Baroque, 2000, University of Chicago Press, has formed dub on the nation of that Bernini for a flower of Saint Ignatius of Loyola intended any such thing. Instead, he believes that Bernini used the erotic character of the experience as a springboard to a new and higher type spiritual awakening The Scarcity of Saint Teresa is a key work in establishing Bernini as one of the greatest sculptors in the history of art. Vita Ludovica Albertoni. The ecstasy of Blessed Ludovica Albertoni is highlighted by the sunlight filtering through two small hiding windows. In this work, one of his last completed in 1671 when he was already over 70 years old. The great giant Lorenzo Bernini captured the nature of mystical visions as a pure gift of light. The statue representing the saintly Franciscan terrari who lived in Rome between 1474 and 1533 it is in the altar chapel in the Church of San Francisco Aripa in Trastevere. It is the land of magnificent jasper trade above the altar. It is interesting to note that Giorgio di Chirico was buried in this same church, dedicated to Saint Francis of Assisi, who stayed here in 1219. The Fountain of the Four Rivers. The Fountain of the Four Rivers is also known as the Fontana di Quattro Fiumi and is located in the Piazza Novana in Rome. The fountain was an important source of potable water for the local before the days in order plumbing. But even more importantly, it was a grandiose monument to the power of glory of the Pope of his family. The fountain is built around a slender Egyptian obelisk surmounted by a dove, a symbol both of the church and the Ano man ay? Ano man? Ang cellphone. Wait, saan na lang i-crop lang jud na siya, Iris. Church and the Pampili, the papal family. The surrounding sculpture represent the four major rivers of four continents that we recognized at the time. First river Ganges in Asia, second Rio de la Plata in America, third Danube in Europe, fourth is Nile in Africa.
Baroque period artist Peter Paul Rubens, 1577 to 1640. Rubens was a prolific and possibly the most famous Baroque painter. His style mirrored Caravaggio closely, and his work usually depicted religious figures. The main distinguishing element of Rubens' art was the extreme emotion it expresses, but with minimal detail. He also had a penchant for painting curvaceous women, which gave rise to the Rubenesque for full-figure women. Allegory on the Blessing of Peace art. At the demand of Charles I of England, who knighted him, he painted the banqueting house selling with a sequence of compositions to the glory of James I. He also painted an allegory of peace for Charles. It was also the pictorial equivalent of the letter he had sent to Pius VI. I hope that His Holiness and the King of England, but above all good Lord himself, will intervene to smother the flames, which currently threaten to spread across the devastated the whole of Europe. Self-portrait. Peter Paul Rubens painted himself, entitled Self-Portrait. Consequence of War Art was painted by Rubens between 1638 and 1639 in response to the 30 Years' War. 1618 to 1648. The conflict origins are complex and diverse, but animosity between Protestant and Catholics played a significant role. In addition, struggles for political power in Europe contributed to the prolonged war. Nearly all European states fought at the same point in the conflict long time span. The fighting involved Spain, France, Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands, Australia, Poland, the Ottoman Empire, and the Holy Roman Empire. In particular, the war represented the continuation and extension of Habsburg and Bourbon rivalry as well as French and Habsburg animosity. As depicted in consequence of the war, the fighting led to the destruction of large areas of Europe as well as outbreaks of both pestilence and famine. Much of the fighting took place in the German states, which suffered significant depopulation as a result. The 30 Years' War ended in 1648 with the Tietes of Onasbrock and Munster as well as the Peace of Westphal. Rubens' work, including Consequence of War, represent the height of Flemish Baroque painting. His style is referred to as pan-European and scienticized element of Italian Renaissance and Baroque artists to form his own artistic approach. The work of Michelangelo, Titan, Caraxi, and Caravaggio inform Rubens' painting in varying degrees. Viewers note the influence of Michelangelo and Rubens' interest, brilliance in depicting the human form. Consequence of War contains not only Rubens' trademark woman, but also the well-muscled forms of Marx, Alecto, and the architect. These muscular figures are reminiscent of the powerful specimen depicted in Michelangelo's Last Judgment, David and the Creation of Adam. This trend in Rubens' art is actually best shown in the extraordinarily well-built men of the Rubens' Raising of the Cross. Furthermore, the careful use of color, light, and the shadow, as opposed to line to show space, used by Caravaggio in the rest of the Flight into Egypt, become a key part of Rubens' styles. Indeed, Rubens' styles become a highly coloristic one. Austria, Vienna, Simon, and Iphigenia. A large, impressive 19th century Royal Vienna had painted porcelain frame charger titled Simon and Iphigenia. After Peter Paul Rubens, the painting is currently in the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna, Austria. Simon, a handsome but coarse and uneducated youth, fell in love with Iphigenia and married her. The effects of love were beneficial and turned him into an educated and graceful man. This is an improving story from Boccaccios di Cameron.